You know, the thing about being the family scapegoat is you learn to wear the label like a suit of armor. You expect the cut, the dismissal, the side eye. But nothing prepares you for the moment they decide to showcase your failure to an audience. My name is Elara Vance, and on the day my father, Arthur, turned 60, my sister Seraphina, the golden child, introduced me to her boss as, and I quote, the family's social liability. The party was at the Vance estate, of course. Not a house, but an estate, nestled deep in the tech money hills of Silicon Valley. It smelled of gardenias, expensive cedar mulch, and the kind of single malt scotch my dad only brings out for clients. The lighting was soft, reflecting off the crystal champagne flutes. Everything was designed to look effortless. But I knew Vivian, my stepmother, had planned every perfect, gilded detail. I stood near the edge of the infinity pool, nursing a glass of sparkling water, trying to make myself as small and unnoticeable as possible. I was wearing the neutral dress, the one that didn't warrant a comment. It was just me and my laptop bag, zipped up and sitting patiently by my feet, a security blanket, I guess that's Sarah. Draped in an off-the-shoulder designer dress and a smile so wide it looked painful, was holding court by the canapé table. She was celebrating her latest promotion at Aether Digital, a massive social media consulting firm. She kept checking her phone, waiting for her new director to arrive. She needed everyone to witness her ascension, especially me. When the black sedan finally pulled up, a wave of forced silence rolled over the patio. Out stepped Liam Holt. He was sharper than the rest of the crowd, wearing a sleek charcoal suit that looked like it cost more than my first year of college. He wasn't loud or flashy. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who actually built things, not just talked about them on LinkedIn. Sarah practically tackled him. She looped her arm through his, dragging him past Arthur and Vivian, who were nodding approval straight towards my isolated corner. The conversation died away completely. All those practiced smiles, all those empty laughs, they all froze. I could feel the heat on my face, that familiar, tight knot in my stomach. Liam, Sarah purred, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. I want you to meet the other half of the family, the one we don't usually talk about in board meetings. Liam stopped. His gaze didn't meet mine. He was taking in the scene, Sarah's tight grip, the way my father avoided eye contact, the hushed anticipation of the cousins. He looked less like a corporate director and more like a scientist observing a dysfunctional ecosystem. Sarah squeezed his arm tighter, leaning in. This is Elara, the quiet one. She's the family's social liability. We keep her around because, family. She let out a short, brittle laugh, the kind that was meant to invite collective scorn. Arthur laughed, too, that booming, hollow sound he used to cover up his own discomfort. Vivian offered a pitying, tight-lipped smile. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just met Sarah's eyes. It was the only power I had left, the refusal to react. Liam, hands in his pockets, finally turned his head. His eyes, a startling, clear gray, locked onto mine for just a second. He was studying them, the audience, the family, not me. Then, he tilted his head, a faint, almost invisible smile forming at the corner of his mouth. The kind of smile that said, I know something you don't. He spoke, his voice low, steady, and utterly devoid of emotion. It cut through the silence like ice. Interesting, he said, his eyes still fixed on Sarah's triumphant grin. Because, Seraphina, you're fired? Sarah's face collapsed. The triumphant grin froze solid, then cracked like porcelain, shattering. The entire party went instantly, absolutely still. The gentle hum of the filter on the infinity pool suddenly sounded deafening. Arthur dropped his glass. I didn't even hear it break. The moment Liam said those words, "You're fired," I felt the release, but I didn't feel the triumph. Not yet. All the years of cold silence and sharp edges came rushing back. And suddenly, the heat in my cheeks wasn't just embarrassment. It was validation. To understand why I wasn't surprised by Sarah's malice, or why I orchestrated her public execution, you have to rewind a little. You have to understand what it's like to be the leftover. My mother, Clara, passed away when I was 12. Fast, quiet, and brutal. She was the sunlight in that cold house, the only person who saw me as anything other than a logistical problem. 6 months after the funeral, Dad married Vivian, and Vivian brought Sarah. Sarah was 11. All bouncy blonde curls, relentless confidence, and the immediate, undivided attention of Arthur Vance. The rules changed instantly. Sarah was signed up for elite coding camps, tennis lessons, and horseback riding. She had a custom-built treehouse installed in the backyard a week after moving in. I got a small, second-hand desk and a strained explanation from Vivian about how the family budget is tight now. Sweetie, Arthur, my biological father, didn't notice the difference. He never did. He just ruffled Sarah's hair and called her my little prodigy, while I was stuck in my room, trying to teach myself Python and HTML on a refurbished laptop I'd paid for with saved birthday money. The favoritism wasn't just about money. It was about acknowledgement. I remember my junior year of high school. I desperately needed new contacts. My prescription was strong, and the old ones were tearing. I asked Vivian. She sighed dramatically, looking up from planning Sarah's sweet 16 party, and said, Elara, We simply can't afford frivolous expenses right now. Have you considered saving up? 2 months later, Sarah got a brand new custom-built gaming PC that cost thousands. For her online school projects, I learned early that asking got you nothing but guilt, so I stopped asking. I started building. My real escape was the internet. I was a ghost online. While Sarah was posting filtered selfies and boasting about her digital marketing ideas in high school, I was taking small anonymous freelance gigs under the pseudonym The Aether. I'd design logos, optimize basic websites, and write clean, minimalist code for small businesses miles away. They paid me in Bitcoin or PayPal, which I carefully transferred into an offshore savings account. It was survival money, not spending money. The final straw came with college applications. I got a full-ride scholarship to the University of Texas for computer science. Arthur sat me down, not beaming with pride, but frowning. "Elara," he said, tapping a pen on his knee, "it's a great honor, but we need you here." "I have a full scholarship, Dad. I just need to cover housing and books." Vivian chimed in. "Well, the truth is, Sarah is attending an expensive private college back east, and we've decided to donate a significant amount to Arthur's charity fund this year. The money simply isn't there for your living expenses. It's time for you to contribute to the family." Contribute to the family. That meant I had to commute 2 hours each way on a bus to a community college for a basic business degree, while Sarah was enjoying a catered meal plan and a new convertible. I lasted 1 semester, working for night shifts a week, cleaning medical offices. I was running on 4 hours of sleep and canned soup. When I finally dropped out, exhausted, Vivian told her bridge club I simply lacked the necessary grit. Arthur nodded along. I moved into a tiny, damp studio above a dry cleaner in a forgotten part of the city. No goodbye party, no help with the security deposit. Sarah texted me a single word. Told ya that text wasn't just a burn. It was fuel. I kept the same ghost persona, the Aether. I started taking on bigger projects, optimizing B2B supply chains, building complex data visualization tools. My clients were remote, often overseas, and never knew my real name. They only knew the Aether delivered results. By 25, I had formalized it. Aether Digital. I registered it in Delaware, a faceless LLC, and focused purely on building cutting-edge algorithmic solutions for large corporations who preferred the anonymity of a B2B arrangement. I hired a small, fiercely loyal team, all remote. I was the CEO, the lead architect, the quiet engine running a $12 million company, all while my father thought I was still doing data entry for an accounting firm downtown. I kept the ghost profile not out of necessity anymore, but out of strategy. The less they knew, the less they could hurt. But then, about a year ago, Aether Digital landed a massive contract with one of the world's leading social media conglomerates. We didn't manage the marketing. We managed the traffic algorithms and digital security audit for one of their major subsidiaries. That subsidiary was the parent company of a smaller, boutique digital consulting firm, Zenith Digital. Zenith Digital, Seraphina Vance's place of employment. And that's when I found the first one. Tucked away deep in Zenith server log, a massive, data-heavy campaign for a tech client. The code structure, the unique taglines, the core philosophy. It was a campaign I had poured 3 months of my life into 5 years earlier. A campaign I had sent to Arthur Vance in a moment of naive pride, asking for his opinion. The file was dated, modified, and credited to Seraphina Vance, Zenith Digital lead strategist. I felt cold, clean rage. She didn't just ignore me. She didn't just slight me. She stole the very foundation of my success. She was a digital parasite, and I was her host. I didn't confront her. I didn't text her. I simply accessed the corporate structure chart and started making quiet moves. I needed to know how deep the roots of her lie went, and how high she had climbed on my stolen ladder. I needed to replace the anger with absolute control. I was the CEO of the company that owned the company that employed her, and she had no idea. The moment I saw my code structure, my unique digital fingerprint credited to Sarah, the hurt was replaced by a clinical focus. I didn't cry. I got to work. I wasn't dealing with a sister anymore. I was dealing with a corporate threat. My work had always been my fortress, the one thing they couldn't touch. My mother, Clara, had gifted me an old, heavy cookbook just before she died. Inside, hidden in a hollowed-out section, wasn't a USB, which is frankly ancient, but a tiny, custom-made cold storage device that held the master keys to all my earliest freelance projects. It was Mom's way of telling me to always keep my most valuable work physically separate and secure. I plugged the device into a dedicated, air-gapped server in my secure facility, the one located miles away from the Vance estate. Files loaded, campaign briefs, proprietary algorithms, mood boards, and over 20 unique Aether protocols I'd developed between the ages of 18 and 23. I cross-referenced every file with the server, logs from Zenith Digital. The results were immediate and sickeningly clear. Zero hadn't just stolen one idea, she had built her entire career, her entire lead strategist title, on a foundation of intellectual property theft, the first major theft traced back 5 years. Right after I'd shown Dad a complex data visualization project for a small environmental startup, I'd emailed him a read-only PDF of the final report, hoping for a single word of recognition. He'd responded with 2 words. Looks dense. Sarah, who must have intercepted the file on Dad's home network, or simply looked over his shoulder, had waited 6 months. Then, she uploaded a nearly identical visualization, stripped of my branding and renamed, to the Zenith server. She claimed it as her award-winning capstone project from college. She was lazy. Pathetically so. She didn't bother to change the kerning or the hex codes in the design templates, the subtle details that were unique to my early Aether style. To a human eye it looked similar. To a dedicated algorithm, it screamed plagiarism. The pattern continued. The secured dark mode platform I had designed for a private financial firm. Sarah had repackaged it as a client-facing dashboard for Zenith, my signature 3-step customer journey funnel, which took me months to test and optimize. She was teaching it in her masterclasses at Zenith. She had gained access because Aether Digital, under a complex holding structure, was the master security contractor for Zenith's parent company. She was using a generic employee login. Often late at night around 1 a.m. when she claimed she was editing late, she would download my folders from the shared audit drive, rename them, run a simple metadata scrubber, an amateur mistake, and re-upload the content as her own. She had no idea the digital trail she was leaving was leading right back to me. I had given Liam Holt, the director of Zenith Digital, a strict mandate. 0 tolerance for any breach of protocol, especially IP. Liam was sharp, loyal, and ruthless against incompetence. He didn't know I was his CEO, but he followed my guidelines to the letter. Sarah had walked into a minefield I had unknowingly planted for her. My initial anger morphed into a kind of cold, calculated satisfaction. The discovery wasn't a tragedy. It was a gift. It gave me the ammunition I needed to not only exact revenge, but to do so with the full, unassailable weight of corporate law. I didn't need a shouting match. I didn't need family court. I needed a digital evidence report that was so ironclad, so irrefutable, that it would not only get her fired, but would blacklist her from the entire industry. I closed the server connection, and looked out the window of my quiet, empty office, the one I kept just 4 times like this. The city lights were a blur of distant opportunity, Sarah thought. I was a failure because I didn't have her pedigree or her daddy's name attached to my successes. But now, I had something far more valuable. I had the truth, backed by the data, and the time for talking was over. The time for Aether's justice had begun. I called Liam Holt the next morning, not from my personal line, or the official Aether Digital line, but from a heavily encrypted, untraceable number I used only for critical security breaches. He answered on the first ring, his voice sharp and alert. Holt here, Liam, it's Elara Vance. A beat of silence. Elara, I wasn't expecting this call. I know. I appreciate your swift action yesterday. It was ... necessary. Necessary. Yes. Professional. Debatable, he said dryly. But I follow my mandate. 0 tolerance. I just need to understand the context of that termination. And who exactly is speaking to me right now? This was the moment. The full, cold reveal. I am the CEO of Aether Digital. I established the holding company that acquired the parent group of Zenith 3 years ago. You report directly to me, Liam. You always have. The line went silent again. This time, the silence was heavy, like a ton of steel dropping. Liam wasn't just a loyal employee. He was a brilliant one. He processed data faster than anyone I knew. You're the Aether, he finally stated, the shock evident in his tone. The one who insists on the shadow profile and the monthly anonymous check-ins. I thought that was just a brilliant, paranoid old man. I permitted myself a small, grim smile. Just me. And the paranoia, as you've seen, is justified. I need you in my secure facility in an hour. Bring the entire Zenith server log package. Everything connected to Seraphina Vance's user ID for the last 5 years. Consider this a level 5 security audit. When Liam walked into my facility an hour later, he didn't even flinch at the security protocols. He just looked at the sparse high-tech office and then at me, the woman he had just publicly fired a day earlier, now his ultimate boss. He finally understood why I'd been lurking at that party. You built an empire under a fake name just to avoid them, he summarized, pointing vaguely toward the hills where the Vance estate sat. I built an empire because I had to, I corrected, pulling up the data on the main screen. The anonymity was just an optimized security feature. Now, let's talk about Seraphine's files. You missed one crucial detail in your routine audits, Liam. Metadata scrubbing. I showed him the algorithm audit report. We didn't need physical evidence. We needed data integrity. On the left side of the screen were the original Aether file codes, proprietary structures, and the unique security stamps embedded deep within the files. On the right, Sarah's files. She ran a basic scrubber to delete the creation date, but she failed to remove the Aether protocol stamp buried in the CSS of the UI design, I explained. It's a unique marker. Every one of these files' 8 major campaigns over 5 years is a carbon copy of my proprietary work. She built her career on plagiarism. Liam leaned closer, his expression hardening with every click. IP theft, corporate fraud. This isn't just grounds for termination, Elara. This is criminal. And a massive breach of our security mandate, I added. You were completely justified in the termination. I just provided the necessary context for the public performance. So, the public firing at the party? That was intentional, he said, meeting my gaze. It was necessary, I repeated. She needed to be humiliated by the very system she thought protected her. And they, Arthur and Vivian, needed to see that my success is real, tangible. And now, their worst nightmare. We spent the next 3 hours compiling the evidence, legal affidavits, signed declarations, a full financial breakdown of the revenue generated by the stolen campaigns, and a formal cease and desist letter drafted by Aether's legal team. Liam ensured the entire package was ironclad, ready to withstand any legal challenge from the Vance family's lawyers. As he packed up the files, a small grin finally broke through his professional exterior. Seraphina thought I was her way up. She never realized I was the tripwire you set for her. Exactly, I said, my voice cold and calm. Seraphina used me as a stepping stone. Now, I'm using the law and the truth as the wrecking ball. The stage was set. The betrayal was documented. Now, it was time to wait for the predictable response from the Vance family, the family that always tried to buy its way out of trouble. The fallout from the barbecue was swift and predictably theatrical. Sera's carefully curated online image instantly began to crack, but the Vance family's PR machine, namely Vivian, was working overtime, framing the event as a corporate misunderstanding. The calls started immediately, but I blocked them all. Sera's pleading texts, Vivian's high-pitched voicemails about ruining the family name. The only number I hesitated on was a text from an unknown number. Juniper, my younger half-sister, was the moral compass I had intentionally kept at a distance. She was 18 now, studying business ethics at a state school, and currently an anonymous summer intern at Aether Digital. I hadn't hired her, or even known she applied. Liam, following the company's blind resume policy, simply saw a sharp young student and brought her on. Juniper didn't know I owned Aether, and she definitely didn't know she was working for the woman her sister and father referred to as the tragic mistake. Her text was simple. Ela, I think I saw something on the server last month. It was about the Vance family charity. I need to talk to you before Dad does. I didn't reply. I needed my hands to be clean of emotional entanglement. I had a war to win, and collateral damage was inevitable. Just as I deleted Juniper's text, my office intercom buzzed. It wasn't Liam. Ms. Vance, your father is here. He insisted on waiting in the lobby. I sighed. Arthur didn't wait, he commanded. But today, he was waiting. Send him up. Arthur Vance strode into my minimalist office, the one I used for B2B meetings. Cold and impersonal, wearing the same rumpled suit from the party. He didn't look like the successful real estate magnate. He looked like a panicked accountant. He ignored the stunning view of the skyline and focused entirely on the checkbook he was clutching. Elara, this has gone far enough, he stated, his voice a low, tense growl, not his usual booming command. This whole charade at the party, it's embarrassing the family. You need to stop. I sat back in my chair, arms crossed, letting the silence stretch. It wasn't a charade, Arthur. It was a termination based on 5 years of documented IP theft. She's your sister. Family protects family. You can't ruin her career over some files she ... misattributed. He tried to smile, but it looked more like a spasm. He then pulled out a thick envelope and slid it across the glass table. $280,000. It's an advance on your trust fund, plus some extra. Take it, drop the legal claims. Liam will reinstate her on probation. We can make this all go away. I didn't touch the envelope. I just looked at him, really looked at him, the desperation in his eyes, the sweat on his temples. You think money fixes theft, Arthur? You taught me a long time ago that my contributions weren't worth a dime. Now you're trying to price my silence. It buys us peace, he insisted, nudging the envelope closer. Sign it on. Say the campaigns were collaborative. Everyone walks away clean. Sera survives. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Where did you get this money, Arthur? Because I know what your net worth is. And $280,000 in liquid cash isn't sitting in a savings account. Especially not right now. He hesitated. He couldn't meet my gaze. Investments. Personal holdings. That is private family business, Elara. Is it? I paused, recalling Juniper's text. My heart started to beat a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I think I saw something about the Vance family charity. I picked up the envelope, feeling the unnatural weight of the bank draft inside. The ink was slightly raised. I turned it over and saw the name of the issuing account, the Vance Educational Outreach Fund. I felt a cold wave wash over me. Not rage, but a chilling realization of the depth of their rot. You stole from the charity, didn't you, Arthur? I asked, my voice barely audible. You embezzled money from the same scholarship fund you preach about at all your fancy dinners, just to bail out your golden child. He lunged forward, trying to snatch the envelope back. You don't know what you're talking about. That is privileged information. I held it high above his reach. I think I do. And soon, the board of directors will, too. I had only planned to destroy Sarah, but Arthur's move, his sheer disregard for the very values he championed, had now dragged him into the blast radius. The realization was bitter. The man who had denied me a scholarship was now stealing from others to protect the daughter who stole my ideas. I was fighting for IP. He was fighting to cover up a felony. "Get out, Arthur," I ordered, dropping the envelope onto the table. "You just went from enabling a thief to facing prison time. The price of my silence just went up. To everything." He backed out, his face pale, muttering threats about how I would regret tearing the family apart. But I knew the truth. They had torn the family apart years ago. I was just holding up the mirror. 3 days after Arthur's desperate visit, the Vance family held their annual Vance Educational Outreach Fund, Gala, the very charity Arthur had stolen from. Vivian had pushed for the event to show Espanhun Salvian, Sathca 0. The ballroom at the Grand Hyatt was suffocatingly opulent. Every elite face in the city was there, nodding and aired, under the illusion of philanthropy. I arrived late, dressed in a sleek, midnight blue cocktail dress that made me look more like an investor than a relative. I carried the same unassuming laptop bag, but this time, it held the entire algorithm audit report and a custom presentation console designed by Aether. Looking tense but defiant in a shimmering gold gown, was working the room, clinging to Vivian. She was spinning the narrative, a competitor's smear campaign. My father is handling the legal side. Arthur, however, looked like a man walking toward the Cheng. His eyes darted nervously, constantly checking the exits. I bypassed the main seating and walked straight to the podium, where a massive projection screen was displaying the charity's logo. Liam Holt was already there, acting as the security consultant for the evening. He gave me a barely perceptible nod. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, my voice amplified by the mic, cutting through the din of expensive chatter. All eyes turned. Arthur nearly choked on his scotch. "My name is Elara Vance, and tonight, I'm here not as a relative, but as the CEO of Aether Digital. We are the company responsible for the comprehensive security and data management audit of your organization's key partners, including Zenith Digital." A murmur rippled through the room. Sarah's face went white, her shimmering dress suddenly looking cheap. I didn't waste time. I placed my presentation console on the podium and activated the screen. The Vance charity logo vanished, replaced by a stark, black screen divided into two halves. On the left, I continued, calm and steady, is a 5-year timeline of proprietary, protected intellectual property developed by Aether Digital. On the right is the timeline of campaigns executed and credited to Seraphina Vance at Zenith Digital. The projection was devastatingly simple. Side-by-side comparison. Slide 1. My original Aether protocol stamp, a unique hex code sequence flashing on the left. The exact same sequence flashing on the right, under Sarah's name. Slide 2. My client's logo, an overseas finance firm next to the Zenith Digital logo. Beneath them, the same marketing tagline: optimize, anonymize, thrive. Slide 3. The most damning evidence, a graph showing a massive spike in Zenith's Q2 revenue, directly corresponding to the exact date that Sarah uploaded my most complex algorithmic tool to the Zenith server. "You don't need a law degree to see this," I explained, gesturing to the overlapping data. This is a literal digital overlay. Miss Vance didn't just borrow my work. She stripped the metadata and presented my life's work as her own, year after year, earning herself promotions, bonuses, and the adoration of this room. The atmosphere in the ballroom changed completely. Forks froze in midair. Whispers turned into gasps. People started pulling out their phones, not to record me, but to Google Aether Digital. Zero shrieked and lunged toward the podium. "Turn it off. This is defamation." "Daddy, tell her to stop." Liam stepped forward, blocking her way with the easy, immovable stance of a professional. "I advise against physical contact, Miss Vance," Liam said clearly into his own mic. "This presentation is company property, and these records are official, court-ready evidence. And for the record, I was acting on the direct orders of the CEO of Aether Digital when I terminated you." He turned to the room, his voice ringing with authority. "Seraphina Vance is terminated for gross misconduct, intellectual property theft, and corporate fraud. We have forwarded all findings to the district attorney's office." Arthur and Vivian looked like statues carved from ice. Arthur's face was green. "But wait," I said, raising my hand. "I saved the final, cruelest blow for last. Zenith Digital will survive this. But there's a more critical issue in this room." I switched the slide. The screen now showed 2 financial documents, a bank statement and a wire transfer receipt. My father, Arthur Vance, offered me $280,000 in exchange for my silence regarding this theft. He claimed it was his personal investment. But my sister Seraphina was desperate, and desperation, as you all know, reveals character. The final slide hit the screen, showing the bank draft I had kept, the issuing account name, Vance Educational Outreach Fund. The money Arthur Vance offered me was stolen from the scholarship fund this gala is celebrating tonight. Funds intended for underprivileged students were transferred to Seraphine's private account to cover the down payment on her luxury condo. The reaction was instantaneous. Not anger, but a profound, sickening betrayal. The donors who had written large checks looked at Arthur with disgust. Arthur, finally finding his voice, roared, "That is a lie. That is slander." Vivian, however, didn't defend him. She looked at the screen, then at the freezing coldness in my eyes, and then at her husband. She instinctively took a step away from him. "The audit is pending, but the wire transfer evidence is clear," I concluded, closing the laptop with a quiet, powerful snap. "I didn't come here for an apology. I came here for an audit and justice." Zero sank into a nearby chair, the gold dress now looking like a shroud. While Arthur frantically tried to speak over the mounting volume of outrage, I simply slung my laptop bag over my shoulder. My work here was done. The Grand Hyatt ballroom emptied out faster than a sinking ship. Arthur was surrounded by frantic board members and lawyers, his voice hoarse as he desperately tried to explain away the undeniable evidence on the screen. Vivian, in a stunning act of self-preservation, was already on the phone with her attorney, citing irreconcilable differences. I was outside, breathing in the cold night air, when a small figure rushed up to me. It was Juniper. Her eyes were red, but not from crying. They were shining with a desperate mix of fear and conviction. "Elara, wait," she pleaded, clutching a tablet. "Juniper, I told you I can't talk to you. You need to go home." "No, you don't understand," she insisted, thrusting the tablet into my hands. "I know about the money. I found the transfers last month when I was interning with the finance team at Aether. I saw $280,000 flagged as a suspicious disbursement from the fund, marked as a consulting fee to a shell company. I started tracking it. It went straight to Sarah's condo, down payment." My stomach dropped. Juniper wasn't just a student. She was a competent analyst, and she had uncovered the truth while working for me, unknowingly. "Why didn't you tell me then?" I asked, my voice low. "I tried. I texted you, but you never reply." I didn't want to believe it was Dad, but I had to know, so I kept digging. "I have the ledger, Elara, the full audit trail. He didn't just steal from the fund. He's been skimming a percentage for years to maintain Sierra's extravagant lifestyle, hiding it under operating expenses." She had provided the final fatal proof I hadn't even known I was missing. She was the one who pulled the ultimate thread. "Why show me now, Juniper?" "Because he's my dad too. But that money was for the kids. He ruined lives. And Sierra, she just let it happen. I couldn't protect them anymore. You're the only one who can stop this." Her voice cracked. "You showed them the truth. Now, what happens next?" I looked at the tablet, then at her. She was the only remaining thread of genuine connection to the Vance family, the last shred of innocent kinship. She had sacrificed her relationship with her father and her sister for truth and ethics. "What happens next is legal," I said, handing the tablet back. "The DA's office will handle the embezzlement charges. Arthur will face the consequences of his actions, and us," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "After all this, are we okay? You're still my sister, Elara. You're the only one who ever taught me to code. I miss you." She had used the exact words Sarah used in her manipulative texts. But from Juniper, they were genuine, painful. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to hug her, to offer her solace. But the price of my peace, my Aether's peace, was absolute separation. If I let Juniper in, I would always be tethered to the trauma, the drama, and the eventual, inevitable, pull back into the family's orbit. "Juniper," I said, my voice empty of emotion, "you did the right thing. You chose ethics over blood. That's a huge step. But my path is clear now. I'm dissolving all ties. To everyone, I need zero contact. For my own stability." She stared at me, her face crumpling in profound disappointment. "You're blocking me too. After I helped you, you helped the truth," I corrected gently. "And the truth set me free. And freedom means I can't look back." I watched the light drain from her eyes. The pain in her expression was almost unbearable, but I held my ground. This wasn't about revenge. This was about self-preservation. "I understand," she murmured, wiping a stray tear. She didn't argue. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the chaos of the departing guests. I immediately forwarded Juniper's audit files to Liam, along with a firm instruction: protect Juniper Vance's identity and future career at all costs. She is a confidential whistleblower. The dominoes fell rapidly. Sierra was formally blacklisted by Aether Digital's influence. Her name flagged for IP theft across the industry. She faced massive civil suits. Her condo went into foreclosure. Vivian filed separation papers the next morning, citing Arthur's financial recklessness. Arthur Vance was forced to resign from the fund, and formal embezzlement charges were filed. Based on the algorithm audit report and the damning evidence Juniper provided, I was free, but the freedom tasted like dust. I had to let go of the last person who cared. Now, all that remained was the quiet, solitary work of ensuring my empire was truly impervious. The aftermath was exactly what I had designed. Swift, clean, and irreversible. Arthur was facing years of probation, restitution payments that crippled his remaining assets, and a public shaming that stripped him of all social standing. Vivian sold the estate, trading her gilded cage for a quiet apartment downtown. Citing in the divorce papers that Arthur's financial and ethical deficiencies were irreconcilable, Seraphina was reduced to applying for retail jobs. only to be rejected when the IP theft flag appeared in every background check. The golden child had been stripped bare. The messages continued for a week, a storm of emotional manipulation. Sera's emails were desperate. Elara, we can fix this. You're jealous. You'll lose everything. Arthur's letters arrived, pleading for a family meeting and hinting at suing me for defamation. I forwarded every single communication to Elara Vance, Aether Digital's ruthless in-house counsel. Elena's response was a swift, icy wave of cease and desist letters, reminding them that any further contact would be met with legal action for slander and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The noise finally died. My final act of self-sovereignty was not about moving away. It was about erasing their power over the space I once occupied. I flew back to my studio above the dry cleaner, the one I had kept as a reminder of my origin. I packed the last few boxes, mostly containing my mother's things. As I looked out the window at the familiar grime and the distant skyline, I realized I didn't need the poverty or the pain as motivation anymore. I needed clean air. Liam had informed me that Aether Digital, destabilized by the scandal and my termination of Sera, was now vulnerable. Its parent company was willing to divest. I initiated a quiet, internal process. A month later, Aether Digital completed the acquisition of Zenith. I didn't announce it publicly, but on the day the papers were signed, I drove out to the high-rise Zenith office building. I didn't step inside. I just stood across the street, looking up at the polished glass structure where Sera had claimed her false glory. Then, I pulled out my phone and sent an encrypted internal memo to Liam. Subject: Zenith rebrand. Action: convert the entire top-floor Seraphine's old department into the new headquarters for the Vance Educational Outreach Fund. Pro bono, effective immediately. My revenge was complete. I not only destroyed the thief's career, I bought the company she stole from and turned it into a charitable institution dedicated to the students Arthur had betrayed. The place where Sera's ambition died would now be a beacon of honest opportunity. I then drove out to the old Vance estate, the one Vivian had just sold. I watched the new owners, a quiet, nondescript family, unloading their minivan. The house no longer represented exclusion or pain. It was just a house. I deleted Arthur's contact. I deleted Sera's blocked number. And, with a heavy heart, I deleted Juniper's email. The severance had to be absolute. I knew she was safe, thriving at Aether, protected by Liam, and that was enough. She had chosen the truth. I had to choose my peace. A few weeks later, I was standing on the rooftop of Aether Digital's new global headquarters in Denver. The Rocky Mountains cut a sharp, clean line against the azure sky. The air was crisp, the silence was profound. My revenue dipped slightly after the media attention, but Elena's legal barrier held firm. The work was honest, the team was loyal, and the future was built entirely on merit, not inheritance. I realized cutting ties wasn't revenge. It was the final, most crucial step of my liberation. Sera learned that actions echo. Arthur learned that privilege has limits. And I learned that family isn't an obligation. I pulled my phone out one last time. I opened the settings, scrolled to my phone number, and requested a complete change. No one from my past would ever have this new number. I was no longer Elara Vance, the family scapegoat. I was Elara Vance de Aether. And finally, I was free. The core truth woven through Elara's story is this: you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. For years, Elara carried the burden of her family's prejudice, believing that blood ties meant enduring disrespect, theft, and constant invalidation. This story isn't just about corporate revenge. It's about the radical act of self-rescue. If your family system is toxic, a place where your hard work is ignored, where your success is minimized, and where your ethics are constantly compromised, it is not a home. It is an obligation, and obligations can be terminated. Elara taught us that cutting ties is not an act of hate. It is the ultimate act of self-love and self-preservation. It is the necessary surgery required to save your own soul. The real wealth isn't the millions Elara made. It's the profound, unshakable peace she found when she changed her number and left the drama behind. Don't wait for the universe to grant you justice. Define your own value, build your own foundation, and be ruthless about protecting your mental health and your future. Your peace is the only inheritance worth fighting for. If you have ever been the scapegoat, the black sheep, or the one forced to constantly prove your worth to people who refuse to see it, then you know this pain. Share your story below. Tell me about the moment you realized that walking away wasn't weakness, but the strongest, bravest decision you ever made. Your story might be the light someone else needs to find their own freedom. Remember, protect your work, protect your peace, and always, always rebuild stronger. Sending you all the warmth and strength you need for your own journey.